Hey everyone, it's Schmuckles. Today we're going to talk about what, in my opinion, was the biggest announcement for the year 7 anniversary broadcast. Most everything that they talked about was leaked, but this little bit here was actually brand new information. They actually revealed that there are 2 licensed killers coming during year 8 in Dead by Daylight, chapter 29 and chapter 30. Let's listen to what the developer said here.
And the team were exploring with it. The next 2 killers that will follow after that are going to be licensed, and I would say licensed with a big L if I can. Really iconic additions to the game. Extremely excited to be able to talk a little bit more about that. Unfortunately, a little too early today to be able.
The next 2 chapters after this anniversary chapter are going to be licensed chapters. So we have a full chapter here with a new killer and a new survivor in August. This one's going to be licensed. And then the November chapter as well, which is a killer paragraph chapter. That is also going to be licensed. There's a lot of people talking about this on Twitter. There's a lot of people trying to discuss what is most likely going to be these next 2 licensed chapters. I posted about this on Twitter and I was asking people like, which license do you think is most likely based on this quote from the Behaviour live stream today? Gorgira from DBD Leaks said that they think it's most likely going to be FNAF or Terminator. I asked, is this a guess or a leak? And this is a guess based on the fact that Behaviour already did a license deal with Terminator for the game Death Garden, and the FNAF movie comes out in late October, so that means that would be actually revealed right before the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, if that paragraph is a FNAF paragraph. Just based on the way that Behaviour worded this, it really does feel like there's going to be some really giant licenses coming in for chapter 29 and chapter 30. Like, I don't think Terminator is big enough of a license. Personally, I think that the front runners for chapter 29 is first and foremost Friday the 13th as a chapter. The developers even said a big license with a capital L and just referenced that it's going to be a very iconic licensed content. To me, that screams Friday the 13th for chapter 29. In my opinion, the top 2 picks for the next chapter, chapter 29, is Friday the 13th and then Alien right after that. There's a lot of video game license possibilities that this chapter could be, but they said that it's very, very iconic, and a lot of the video game licenses are actually more niche. That being said, there was this interesting tweet right here from Dweet, who actually was able to post about some of these leaks prior to the anniversary. Steve Harrington and Nancy Wheeler can be seen in the anniversary stream when showcasing the new disconnect bots. Very intentional. If that's somehow referencing or teasing a return of Stranger Things to Dead by Daylight, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why Dweet would say this, but I thought it was interesting and very notable. We'll have to keep an eye on this. In my opinion, I'm not going to believe Stranger Things is returning to DVD until I see it. It's hard for me to get behind speculations for this right now, just based on the past of leaks and things that we thought were happening that didn't end up happening with that license. Would be kind of an interesting story though if Vecna turned out to be one of these 2 chapters though. For chapter 30, I feel that there are 4 possibilities for clearly what is most likely for this chapter. Number 1 and number 2 are Five Nights at Freddy's and Slenderman. I feel that these are both very big iconic licenses that would make sense as only a killer because there's no clear survivors to come in with those chapters. It does kind of make sense with the release of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie like people have been talking about, but I really feel like Slenderman is one of the bigger, more hyped licenses too, and kind of an underrated hyped license. The other 2 licenses are Pennywise and Candyman. Pennywise is a license that Behaviour, Matthew Cote in particular, has openly admitted that they tried to get and could not get.
Can we get Stephen King's It for the clown? I wish. Seriously, I have no problem saying that this is one we tried to get. It's not one that they're willing to discuss right now because obviously they're working on big things and they are not they're not ready to talk about this license at this time.
Meaning that if Pennywise were to come in, that I feel like it's a low probability thing, but things will have to have changed with the license holders, Warner Bros. New Line Production, which is a sub-company of Warner Bros, owns the Pennywise license, and actually they'd have to go through Stephen King as well. This is something that they've struggled with in the past, so unless things have drastically changed behind the scenes without anybody knowing, then Pennywise does seem kind of unlikely to me. Candyman is also another real possibility for this chapter paragraph as well. MGM actually was bought out by Amazon, so I'd have to think that the video game licensing rights for that property was inherited by Amazon. So it could be a situation where there's a new license holder and people that are actually willing to license this property into Dead by Daylight. So just to kind of recap what we talked about here, the devs have acknowledged that these next 2 chapters are licensed and that it's going to be a very iconic license. In my opinion, for chapter 29, Friday the 13th is the front runner for that, and then Alien after that. And then for chapter 30, Five Nights at Freddy's and Slenderman seem like front runners for that. Candyman and Pennywise have an outside chance, but it seems like it's been real difficult to license those properties before. It's kind of interesting that Behaviour Behaviour actually confirmed that these next 2 chapters were licensed, they don't usually do that. The reason being for that is because if something falls through with the license holders, where the deal actually falls through or the chapter falls apart or anything happens behind the scenes, they don't want to let people down. But it seems like they're absolutely set on releasing these next 2 chapters to be licensed. And I think that the reason that they brought this up during the anniversary stream is because they know that this game has kind of been on a downward trajectory. This is giving something in the future for fans to be excited about. I think that this announcement is to turn this game around and give fans hope for the future. They use the explicit wording that this is going to be very iconic licenses. So that's why I think that Friday the 13th and Five Nights at Freddy's or Slenderman are the front runners for these chapters. It doesn't feel like they could toss around that kind of terminology of saying it's very iconic and licensed with a capital L without it being like a really huge license. Like imagine they said that and they were kind of lackluster or more niche licenses. Like even like a little bit smaller licenses like Art the Clown and Terminator. These licenses would be a little bit too small and there'd be mixed opinions about this license, and even if some of these licenses belong in the game for various reasons. So I really do believe that both of these licenses are going to be like top 5 most hyped licenses. Oh yeah, and another thing I wanted to say about them using the kind of terminology of saying something's going to be iconic is they said that the same thing about the Resident Evil chapter, which turned out to be Nemesis, that first Resident Evil chapter. They were like, you can expect an iconic killer from this franchise. People are speculating between Lady D, the sisters, Mr. X, and Nemesis, and there was all these crazy wild theories of what it could be, and in the end it turned out to be the most simple, the most iconic thing. People were wondering like, could they mean this by iconic, could they mean that, and it turned out to be like the most obvious, most simple answer. So something like Friday the 13th, even though it seems like too obvious, I think that the most obvious iconic thing could be true here, and everyone knows that they've wanted Jason in this game for years. Let me know your theories in the comment section below. Which licenses do you think are most likely for chapter 29 and 30 and why? We'll definitely post more videos if more information comes out about this. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. That does it for this video. Goodbye.